Welcome back to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. This morning, we're spotlighting new accusations in the death of a pastor's wife. Mica Miller's family is heading to court in June for a hearing to decide who's entitled to items that law enforcement seized while they were investigating her death. This includes things like her cell phone, her purse, and the vehicle that she used to drive to the park where she shot and killed herself. Investigators have not accused her widower, John Paul Miller, of any wrongdoing, so it's important to understand that. In the meantime, though, Mica's family is speaking out. The attorney who represented her in her separation and the attorney who's currently representing her sister spoke to our Court TV senior producer, Emanuela Grinberg. And in this first clip you're about to see, attorney Regina Ward talks about the mental health of both John Paul and Mica.
He claims that she was diagnosed with these mental illnesses and was on lithium. According to her, she didn't know she'd been diagnosed or what her medication was because he always controlled the medication. He administered the medication. In fact, he has admitted that he would cut her pills up and give them to her if she refused to take the medication. Lithium, he has been diagnosed and admits it in a sermon. And if you look up lithium and the side effects of it, or if you take too much of it or you're over-medicated, you go into delirium. And that's what her demeanor reminded me of.
Oh my, and there's more. Now, Court TV, we want to let you know, did contact John Paul Miller's new attorney, and we requested comment, but so far we have not heard back. We'll let you know if we do. Now, we want to talk more about what was said in that interview with our senior producer, and guess what? We're so lucky to have her joining us on the program this morning. Say hello to Court TV senior producer, Emanuela Grinberg. Emanuela, good to see you, my friend. Let's talk a little bit about your overall impressions, talking to this attorney, Regina Ward, and the accusations that she's making that are certainly eyebrow-raising. Did you get the sense that these accusations are credible?
Well, what's clear is that they are still very much alive, and this case is moving forward, even though the criminal portion is all but done. Law enforcement has cleared John Paul Miller of any involvement or wrongdoing in his wife's death, but her family is still very much moving forward. In this interview, Ms. Ward talked about the possibility of a wrongful death suit, but she also still said that there's a lot remaining, or to look forward to out of the investigation of Mica Miller's death. The lithium in particular, she said she is waiting on the results of a toxicology analysis of Mica Miller's blood to see if she was under the influence of lithium at the time of her death, because according to Ms. Ward, she had stopped taking lithium. She was kind of moving out of from underneath the control of her husband, and she was not taking lithium. But when Ms. Ward looks at that video, the surveillance video we have of Mica Miller in the hours, minutes, before her death, going to a gas station, making a phone call to 911, reporting that she was going to kill herself, Ms. Ward says, that is not the Mica Miller I knew. And she's making some pretty strong allegations that maybe her estranged husband got to her. And that's pretty stunning, those are pretty stunning allegations for being cleared by law enforcement.
Right, Emanuela. I want to play a little more of your interview with her. In this portion, she's talking about something else that was administered, again, falling under the umbrella of control. We heard about the control with the administration of the lithium, and now we're going to hear about testosterone injections. Let's take a look.
So he was always on top of making sure she kept that medication. And that son of a bitch would inject her and her buttocks with testosterone, steroid shots.
What for?
Allegedly to enhance her libido. Moron. Sorry, I shouldn't say that.
She used a lot of colorful language there, Emanuela. Is not pulling any punches about this guy and how she feels about him. What was your reaction? I would have loved to have seen your face in hearing that. What did you think when you heard it?
Well, it's hard to believe. There's no scientific evidence that that is what testosterone is used for in women, but also, one wonders, what the relationship was like, for that kind of activity to allegedly be going on, behind closed doors. But kind of spoke to the allegations of Mica Miller's family that this was a seriously abusive relationship, that the pastor, although Miss Ward was very clear to tell me she will not call him a pastor, that John Paul Miller was exerting extreme control over his wife, making her feel that, she was, subservient, building this atmosphere of subjugation, but also really using her, taking advantage of her religiosity, her faith, to believe that this was the way she was supposed to behave.
Emmanuel, I'm so glad you brought that up. I understand Regina Ward was saying to you that John Paul Miller would weaponize religion in a way, knowing it was something very important to Mica in order to carry out mental abuse, according to what she knows from speaking with her family. Let's play another clip and we'll talk on the other side of it.
Dutiful as a wife and abiding in terms of what she understood that God required of her as a wife, and especially the wife of a pastor. She was so brainwashed. He had been, I guess, quote, training her for a long time, and that how a wife is supposed to respond even to an abusive husband. There is a sermon that he gave. It was a series that he was doing, and this one, I want to say it was number 14, and it was called Discontentment. And in that sermon, about 2/3 the way through it, he talks about how that God says that it's a wife's duty to provide intimacy to the husband. That's her duty. And anytime he asks for it, you better be complying. And, if you don't do what Jesus says to do, then you're sinning.
Oh, my goodness. And it makes you want to cry when you hear this stuff. And again, Emmanuel, I know we have reached out for comment from John Paul Miller's attorney. We would love to hear his side of this. Again, he is not charged with anything, entirely cloaked with a presumption of innocence here. Emmanuel, would you kind of take us to what's ahead, please? We only have about a minute left, but in June, this very contentious hearing is set to happen over her property. What's going on, please?
Well, this is basically a continuation of the marital litigation that began before she died. She had filed for separation. There were temporary restraining orders between both of them to stay away from each other, but also to not destroy any property that belonged to either of them. So that continues now. Mica Miller's sister, Sierra Francis, has been appointed a special administrator, personal representative, to represent her estate in actions going forward against J.P. Miller. So coming up next, is really this property that not just, that was seized in the law enforcement investigation at the scene where her body was found, but, homes, vehicles that the two shared as part of their marital assets. So among those items are the items that law enforcement seized. And Ms. Ward says that J.P. Miller has aggressively been trying to get those items from law enforcement. And that's part of what will be taken up in this hearing.
Oh, boy. It makes you wonder why. Why is he so intent on getting that property back? You would think now would be a time for grieving, but everybody grieves differently, as we know. We'll leave it there. Emmanuel Grenberg, you're the best. Thank you so much for sharing that interview and your time with us this morning. We'll see you soon. When we come back right after this break, we're looking ahead to the defense's case starting later this morning in the Doomsday Prophet murder trial. And our friend Kirk Nurmi, who famously defended Jodi Arias, will be sharing with us the best strategy to defend a notorious defendant. We'll be right back.